Mike, you're listening to the news at 1 on Radio 1. We're joined now by the Minister for Justice, Equality and Law Reform, Michael McDowell. Minister, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Sean.
Now, ever since you put out that written Dáil reply last week about the Centre for Public Inquiry and its Executive Director, Frank Connolly, you've been taking some criticism. The Irish Times on Friday saying there was a smell off the affair. The Tribune yesterday saying what Michael McDowell did under the cloak of Dáil privilege undermines the independence of our justice system and steps dangerously close to the creation of a police state, something akin to what earlier we heard from Professor Walsh. What exactly was your justification?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I answered a question which was put to me by Deputy Finian McGrath, and he asked me to comment on recent attempts, as he put it, to undermine the CPI. This is the body for which Mr. Connolly was working as its chief executive. And I answered the question directly, and I stand by every single word I said, and it is the plain unvarnished truth as far as I am concerned. And I won't be browbeaten into silence by people who are peddling what I regard as a complete falsehood, and that is that unless material is proven beyond all reasonable doubt by admissible evidence in a court of law, that it cannot be the subject matter of any comment by a Minister for Justice. And that seems to be a constant theme going through all of this, what I consider to be very misguided and ill-informed criticism of me. My job is to defend the security of the state.
And is that what you were doing last week by making these revelations about Frank Connolly?
You will recall that I was being asked to deal with the issue as to what I had done with the Centre for Public Inquiry and to comment on what Deputy McGrath said were efforts to undermine that body.
Well, what he was really talking about, I suspect, is the fact that the Irish Independent had been given, leaked, I suppose, copies of the false passport applications, and presumably that would have been a matter of concern to you as Minister for Justice.
No, first of all, it is not a concern of mine that that matter appeared in the Irish Independent, because I supplied it to the Irish Independent.
You actually provided those documents to the Independent?
I provided that document to the Independent, yes.
Was that not a document that should have been treated as a confidential one, a citizen applying for a passport?
No, because it was a false, bogus application form, which was generated as part of a subversive activity.
Why didn't you say at the time that you were giving these documents to the Independent?
What do you mean? Why didn't I say? The Irish Independent sought from me, and I gave to the Irish Independent the document which was the subject matter of the false application for a passport. And I just want to make it very clear, under the Official Secrets Act, a Minister of State is perfectly free in appropriate circumstances in the public interest to make official information available to the media. And I just want to make it very, very clear as well that it was not a confidential document. It was a bogus, fraudulent document.
Right,
let's deal with this, Sean. It was not a confidential document. It was a document which was a fraud on the Irish state, and the person named in it as the applicant for the passport never made that application. A priest's signature was forged on it, purporting to be the signature of a priest in West Belfast. The document was entirely bogus, and it was certainly not a confidential document.
But we're talking here about something which presumably was the subject of a garda inquiry. That worked its way through the system, right up to the DPP. I'm surmising here. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the DPP, in his wisdom, decided there really wasn't sufficient grounds for a charge. And then you, as Minister, against that background, you see fit then to get at Frank Connolly using another way.
Sorry, I'm not getting at anybody. I'm protecting...
Well, he's without €4 million in funding. And
sorry, hold on a second. The decision by Mr. Feeney of Atlantic Philanthropies to withdraw funding is a decision for Mr. Feeney's charity and not for me. But I want to make it
Are you saying you had nothing to do with it?
No, I fully support it.
And he did it based on pretty heavy briefing from your good self.
I'm sure he took into account what I said to him.
Well, your office was saying last week that you told him the full unvarnished truth about Frank Connolly.
That's right. And I insist on my right to do it. And I don't know what your problem is with this.
Well, could I put to you a question raised by another analyst yesterday? Well, in this case now, there's uncertainty about at least, whether anybody is going to be charged with the murder of Rachel O'Reilly. You presumably have information which is akin to what you had on Frank Connolly. Do you want to tell us who murdered Rachel O'Reilly?
Sorry, Sean. This is an absurd proposition that you're putting to me. That it is
the same logic.
No, it's not. It's not the same logic. My purpose as Minister for Justice is to defend the Irish state from subversion, and I intend to do that fearlessly.
And
I'm not going to be browbeaten by anybody into suggesting.
And you're the last person anybody would expect to be able to browbeat.
Yes, but the point, Sean, that you're forgetting is that it is not the case. It's not the law in Ireland. It's not a constitutional doctrine in Ireland. There's absolutely no basis for the proposition that because material cannot be adduced in a court established by law for one reason or another, or because no prosecution is being brought, that material cannot be brought to the attention of the Irish public.
You can fill the file to blacken the name of the person who the DPP has decided not to charge. That's really what you're talking about.
It's not a question of blackening anybody's name. I stand by every word I said. It's not blackening somebody to tell the truth as you see it.
Well, Frank Connolly...
Sorry, I heard Frank Connolly's interview with you, and I won't comment on the credibility of that interview with you, but I say that I stand by every word I've spoken in public.
Would you accept, though, Minister, that if it's the case that Frank Connolly has not visited Colombia, then that he has been gravely wronged?
I'm not speculating on anything he said to you. I am saying that what I said to you is certainly right, and I'm quite what I've said to the public and to Dáil Éireann is perfectly right. And I'm just saying that's the beginning, middle, and end of it. I am not going to be put into the position by anybody. That as Minister for Justice, I cannot comment on actions which I consider are subversive of state security. Can I ask you?
You're citing the protection of democracy as justification. Now, in what way was the Centre for Public Inquiry a threat to democracy?
Sorry, I'm not suggesting that the Centre for Public Inquiry is a threat to democracy.
But that was the whole basis for
those are your words. I am saying that Mr. Connolly himself has some questions to answer, and I've made that very, very clear in Dáil Éireann. And no amount of obfuscation by some commentators in the media takes away from that fact. And the second point I would make to you, and I think it's a very important point, is when I, for instance, said that the Provisional IRA were organising large-scale robberies in Dublin, exactly the same criticisms were unleashed on me. That I was unfairly attacking an organisation, and that I was...
You didn't name any names.
But okay, I mentioned Jerry Adams, Martin McGuinness and Martin Ferris as members of the Army Council, and exactly the same argument was made again in relation to that this was something which should be dealt with in the courts or not mentioned at all. And this is the kind of supine, pusillanimous approach to the state security which has got us into some of the difficulties which we've encountered in the past.
What other files have you given to the Independent?
Sorry, I didn't give any files to the Independent.
Documents?
I supplied to the Irish Independent the bogus application form. And I did so because it is not a confidential document, and the people are entitled to know that such a false application for an Irish passport was made. And can I ask you this, as a journalist, do you think it is wrong that a minister would supply a bogus application form
I think the more information we can get from ministers, the better. I'm all in favour of openness.
Well,
I just think this is highly unusual what you did.
Then what's your problem, Sean?
Well, I suppose I don't have any particular problem. I just simply have a few questions, I suppose, that I want to ask you, and I appreciate you coming on the programme.
But I'm being frank with you. And I mean, I didn't have to volunteer that I gave that document to the Independent. But I'm being frank and truthful with you because I stand over everything I do.
No, but I mean,
when I did that, I did it for a particular reason, and that was that on a previous RTE program, a couple of days previously, remarks had been made which suggested that there was no truth whatsoever in these questions which were being raised about Mr. Connolly and his role.
Minister, we're way over time. Thank you indeed for coming on the Lunch Talk to us. That's the Minister for Justice, Equality and Law Reform, Michael McDowell, and brief